Welcome back to another edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. It is Thursday. You are here with Tyler Rowland and Alex Clancy. We're going to be talking about a football game that gets played tonight. The Hall of Fame game is here. What should you be looking for, and should it even happen? Then we got to talk about the 6 wide receivers from 2019 that got paid, with Diontae Johnson from the Steelers finally getting his money. And then Alex's mystery segment of the week. Will it be Watson? Will it be something else? You'll have to see, just like I'll have to see. All of that and more on a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Let's roll, baby.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Football fans, it is a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans, here with my co-host, Alex Clancy from Locked On Cardinals. We got a lot to talk about on today's show, but of course, we have to start with a real football game. The preseason begins tonight as the Las Vegas Raiders take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. Obviously, it's nice to have football back, but, we're going to talk about what you need to be watching for in that game, and should this game even be taking place. Before we get into that, I do want to let you guys know that this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, not a crisis line, not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide, and they have a special offer for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/Locked On. Also, thank you for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first listen every day. Make sure you subscribe on whatever platform, free and available on all platforms, including the Locked On NFL YouTube channel, Monday through Friday, NFL content, under 30 minutes, getting you ready to go every single day. So make sure that you stay locked in to the Locked On NFL podcast. But with this game between the Raiders and the Jaguars, for me, obviously, we'll probably not see a lot of starters. I know we're not going to see Trevor Lawrence in the game, but it's the rookie classes for me that I always want to pay attention to in these games. You look at the Raiders, Dylan Parham, the interior offensive lineman out of Memphis. You got Zamir White, the running back, who's a pretty good player. I'm excited to watch their late round offensive tackle, Thayer Munford from Ohio State, being a guy who follows the Buckeyes on the Jaguars side. Travon Walker, obviously the first pick. Devin Lloyd, linebacker from Utah. A lot of people very high on him. How will he play? Chad Mumma as a linebacker from Wyoming for Jacksonville. Luke Fortner, the interior offensive lineman from Kentucky. Snoop Connor, their running back, who people seem to be pretty excited about, who they got in the 5th round. So I'm looking for all those young guys. Alex, is there any of those young guys that you're interested in seeing, or is your thought process on the game really bigger than that?
I want to see Josh McDaniels part 2.
That's the coaching, yeah.
That's
both brand new coaches as well.
Yeah, with Doug Peterson. I mean, and adults in the room with Jacksonville. We can talk about this before we go to break. I don't think there should be a Hall of Fame game. It's not like putting a wet blanket on anything. It's just players are running around in this game like it was the Pro Bowl that we just watched. It's this is way too early to have to worry about players getting hurt. It's not even, it's an extra preseason. It's just not, I don't think it, I understand the history and everything of it, but Josh McDaniels, after he completely flamed out in Denver when they wanted Tim Tebow, and they ended up becoming the best rushing football team in the NFL, and then that was it. And then he went back with his tail between his legs, and then he wrote a Dear John letter to Indy saying, nope, just kidding. And he drops into one of the more exciting offenses in the NFL, one of the more exciting teams with the Las Vegas Raiders. And I want to see Doug Peterson. And I know that we're not going to see much from them, but there's a lot of young talent on both of these squads and 2 older dogs. And I'm really curious to see how the old dogs can really infuse themselves in the new age of football, because Josh McDaniels hasn't really done that. It's been old school. Even with Mac Jones, he's an old school player. And Doug Peterson was, the Philly during the Super Bowl, but we haven't seen really anything from him. So I'm curious about the coaches. The play, it'll be fun, but we're not going to see a whole lot that we want to see in this game.
Yeah. Fair enough. And that kind of leads us into, the larger point that you've had throughout when we were prepping for the show. Does this game need to happen? I feel like we're so ready for football every single year. It's like really wanting a candy bar and then you get a Three Musketeers. You know what I mean? Like
I love Three
we really want,
Musketeers.
you would. God, it's the worst. But try Built Bars. So you get a healthier version of a candy bar
Cookies
that's
and
better
cream,
than
yeah.
Three Musketeers. Yeah, no doubt. But anyways, the whole point for me here is that this makes the Raiders and the Jags have to play an extra preseason game, and the TV product, while getting people excited, is not very good. It's probably the least interesting preseason game of them all. So again, not to be a wet blanket, but I think I agree with you. I don't, and especially with some of the fiascos they've had recently with the field and the injuries and some of that, I just think it's an old novelty that maybe needs to go by the wayside. I think if they want to do one of these like first preseason games, they could do it in a more exciting way.
Yeah, have flag football with retired players. Like, do something different.
Like a different stadium or a different that like the NBA does with the All-Star game or G League. They try like different things. Maybe the NFL should do like a go to 40 points. Whoever scores 30 points first wins. Show us like do like game testing or do it at a different venue that's like super cool, like in Hawaii or Mexico or something. Do something like that with this game.
It's got to be in Canton. That's the whole thing.
Well, okay, then do the game the rule changes.
Ain't no way 30 points total getting scored on tonight. Okay, points are at a premium during these games. Points are at 100% premium. All right.
Then do the Elam ending. Do the Elam ending like you get to the fourth quarter.
3-0?
Whatever the score is, say it's tied, but whoever gets the first points wins the game and the game is over. You know what I mean? Like something like that would at least make the fourth quarter interesting if it was more like make the fourth quarter sudden death overtime, or you know what I mean? Try to find, like the NBA does, make something cool and different out of this first game to get people excited. And since it's preseason, they could.
How about this? Because I mean, I'm now completely on board with just removing the game. Like it's just, I get it. It's fun. I'm gonna watch. Everybody's going to watch, but it's like if you could choose to have a creative department of people between now and next season come up with an idea that would get eyes on, like you'll watch this game for the first 8 minutes of the first quarter, and it's like, man, this game is dragging. I'm going to go have a beer and make dinner. Like it's like, okay, football, but it's not like, okay. I mean, unless you've got BetOnline included, but like, what if you do just like, and this is the last thing, and I know we got to go, like, what if you do some sort of, with the players that get elected to the Hall of Fame that year, you take and chances are they've either won a Super Bowl or they've had incredible moments. Just do like an hour back-to-back reel of the greatest moments, like quarters of play, like things in Super Bowls where people relive things that are super exciting over the last 20 years instead of putting this arbitrary game out there where it's like, yeah, fans, a couple million are going to watch, but it's still too early. We're still like a week and a half out. Still way too early for a football game.
Right, and the teams in it have to play an extra game. I want the football on the TV. Yeah. Just make the game more exciting in some way, but I understand your perspective there. But we gave you guys just a little bit of a tease on accident earlier talking about Built Bar, because I want to tell you guys about Built Bar before we move into talking about the 6 wide receivers from 2019 that got paid, which was the worst contract, which was the best so far, as Diontae Johnson finally got his money from the Steelers. Before we get into that, got to tell you about Built Bar, the best protein bars in the galaxy. You get the best of both worlds. You get all of the health benefits of a protein bar that you need: low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber. But you get all the taste benefits of a candy bar. Alex dropped the flavor earlier: cookie dough chunk puff. Guys, you get the cookie dough flavor that you want. You get the chunk, which gives you some texture and some cookie dough bites in it. And then you get the puffs, which has that marshmallowy texture to it. It's covered in 100% real chocolate, a fantastic flavor. But that's just one of many delicious flavors that they have for you over at Built Bar. So go to Built, BUILT.com. Use promo code LOCKED15. You're going to get 15% off your order. Once again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com.
All right, second segment. Locked on NFL Thursday. I am Alex Clancy from Locked on Cardinals. He's Tyler Rowland from Locked on Titans. Follow him at TikTok Titans. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Thanks for making Locked on NFL your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. Like, the offseason's over, man. We did it.
We made it.
We made it. But really, like, there's only, like, now 2 dead weeks or so. Like, everything bleeds in now. We're just like, okay, there's this little blip where it's like, what are we going to talk about? Let's talk about storylines for the season. That's too early. But, man, we're back. Okay, so a lot of wide receivers, many wide receivers have gotten their contract extension before their first-round rookie scale deal has been up, okay? Namely, first off the bat was A.J. Brown, draft day, trade to Philly, contract extension. Terry McLaurin got his next, I believe, and then more recently, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Diontae Johnson, who got it today, and Hunter Renfrow. I'm going to run down these numbers, Tyler, okay? And we're going to frame this segment this way. As of right now, what looks to be the best contract? Okay, as of right now, what looks to be the best contract? And let me run these down. Okay, A.J. Brown, 4-year, $100 million. DK Metcalf, 3-year, $72 million. Deebo Samuel, 3-year, $71.5 million. Terry McLaurin, 3-year, $71 million. Diontae Johnson, 2-year, $36.7 million. And Hunter Renfrow, 2-year, $32 million. Best contract for the team that signed them to the extension.
For me, the best one, I'm going with DK Metcalf. Although I'm not a big DK Metcalf fan because of his play personality. I'm not. If you look at the statistics, you look at the health, being out on the field for every game. A.J. Brown and Deebo Samuel have both had a lot of missed games. Terry McLaurin is good, but he's not the physically imposing guy that DK Metcalf is. So I get the durability, I get the production, and I get the size. I'd have to say, you know, if DK and A.J. Brown were switched in their years and money, then it would be a different story. But you get DK Metcalf, who's been more statistically productive and more healthy, and healthier, not more healthy, healthier than Deebo Samuel or A.J. Brown, but yet you didn't pay the most. You paid the same price as Deebo and far less than A.J. I think DK Metcalf is the best signing out of those based on what he's done health-wise and what he's done production-wise.
I'm surprised you said that. I'm throwing A.J. Brown out, throwing DK Metcalf out. This is a 2-prong answer for me, and I didn't mean to do it this way. Hunter Renfrow should have gotten double. Like, I don't know what, like, his value is completely understated. And, you know, he was, and I get with Devontae Adams coming in, this is obviously an extension. This isn't a contract. He may be in line for $100 million with $80 million guarantee. We don't know. We don't know what Hunter Renfrow's ceiling is. We know what his floor is, and it's a lot higher than the majority of wide receivers in the NFL. Diontae Johnson may be the most undervalued wide receiver. Number 2, only to Terry McLaurin. And Terry McLaurin, 3 years, $71. He's got that not career trajectory-wise, demeanor-wise, Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins, Andre Johnson, Marvin Harrison, and I'm not Reggie Wayne, where it's not comparing play on the field, but do you know what his voice sounds like? Because I don't. You know, it's, you know what? I'm going to show up. The quarterback room has been terrible since he's been there, and he's just shown up and put up numbers. And we'll see with Carson Wentz with him being able to throw the ball down the field this year. I feel like if I frame it this way before we go on to the final segment, who do you think will outlive? Like, this could look like a bargain. And I'm assuming we're only going to look at Diontae Johnson, Hunter Renfrow, and Terry McLaurin for this. Maybe Deebo Samuel with the 3 years, $72. Which looks like a bargain? If like the biggest potential to be a bargain contract extension.
Well, I think it's Hunter Renfrow, the guy who's the least, because he's going to be in the best offense this year, most likely. And when you have a guy like Devontae Adams and Darren Waller, that's only going to open up things more for Hunter Renfrow. And I think he's a guy who he's not going to be Cooper Kupp level because he simply doesn't have the size and the physicality of a Cooper Kupp type guy. But a slot guy who can move the chains for you can be incredibly valuable. And he got, $16 million per year. You're giving A.J. Brown $25 million per year. In my mind, Hunter Renfrow is at least $18 to $20 million worth at that point. So I think that the Raiders got themselves a good value with Hunter Renfrow, and he fits perfectly into their offense. And, just to answer the, original backside of the question, I think AJ Brown is the worst. You look at Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown isn't $28 million better than those guys, in terms of total money. He's just simply not. So that in itself, just based on, even if AJ Brown plays well for Philly, he's not that much better money-wise than Deebo or DK or Terry. So the Eagles had to pay out the nose to get him because they're the one they had to trade for him too. So they gave up a pick, and they had to give up way more money than people comparable to AJ. So to me, AJ has to be the worst deal. And I know I sound like a bitter Titans fan, and you know what? I am.
Yeah, it was your fault. If follow at Tech Titans, he jinxed
for all
it.
my
This
reverse
whole thing
jinxes.
happened.
Yeah,
it happened. Well, and yeah, I think AJ Brown, just because there's the most pressure on him to perform because of the number. Like Deebo Samuel does a couple different things. Okay, obviously he's a different guy. DK Metcalf does a couple things really well. Terry McLaurin's all over the field. He's big. You play outside, you play inside, he does whatever. And then Hunter Renfrow, like, throw him wherever you need to throw him, and he can run every route. And you know what? He may eat. He may be a double-digit touchdown guy this year with Devontae Adams, as you mentioned. Darren Waller and he are going to eat. And then I think Diontae Johnson, if the quarterback play doesn't regress a lot, Diontae Johnson is still one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league. And they've got wide receivers abound there now with George Pickens they drafted also. Yeah. Alex Clancy, Tyler Rowland, Locked On NFL. What will the final number of suspension games be for Deshaun Watson? We're going to hit, because we could talk about this for 2.5 hours, okay? Right. We talk about the football element here. There is some nuance, obviously, but since the appeal by the NFL, what number is it going to be? Because they're looking for an indefinite suspension, quote unquote. Alex Clancy, Tyler Rowland, Locked On NFL rolls on next. First, this podcast is brought to you in part by BetterHelp. Okay, I've been to therapy before. I went when I was much younger, when my parents got divorced. I went when I was in college, when I didn't know what the hell I was doing with my life. Okay, life is full of twists and turns, and it's important to show up for yourself through all of it. BetterHelp Online Therapy will assess your needs and can match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. I go to therapy. It makes me feel better. I'm actually going back soon. And, it just keeps me balanced. And sometimes it's difficult to get in. Sometimes it's difficult to find a therapist that fits your need. BetterHelp makes that very easy. Okay. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. Okay. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist, which is key. I mean, being able to communicate with your therapist is huge. It's more affordable than traditional offline therapy, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp is a great way to invest in yourself. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they're recruiting additional therapists in all 50 states. And they've got a special offer for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. All right, final segment. Locked On NFL Thursday. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Tyler Rowland, Locked On Titans. You can check them out every day for all your Titans news, Monday through Friday on YouTube, and free and available wherever you get your platform, wherever you get your podcast at Tic Tac Titans. You can check me out, Locked On Cardinals, Monday through Friday, YouTube, and free and available wherever you get your podcast. All the Cardinals news you can choke down. Deshaun Watson suspended 6 games, and then the appeal, like everybody knew was coming, came. And the NFL is looking for an indefinite suspension, quote unquote. Okay. There's a couple different ways you can look at this. And I feel like Tyler, his seat's getting warm because he's got something to say. I know the mannerisms. I know it's like the guy in the back of the class that knows the answer, but the teacher tells everybody that tells him that he has to let other people answer before he can answer. I'll go first and I'll let you diatribe at the end. Okay.
Every class of my entire life, that's what happened to me. I shout out answers, and teachers had to pull me aside privately and say, you got to let other people get a chance to answer. And I understand now why that is, but at the time, I just wanted to answer
I wish you could just turn your mic off in class. like you just did. I mean, I wish that would have been possible. So Deshaun Watson, 6 games. We feel like that's not going to happen. I'm not a lawyer.
Right.
I'm not an appellate judge. I don't have any say in this. But this happened in some capacity, and not comparing the two situations, with Ray Rice. Okay, so Ray Rice got 3 games, I think, initially.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure. That was a long time ago, but I think it was 3 games, and then he never played football again. Okay? Kareem Hunt was different because the Chiefs just cut him, and then he was put on suspension. That was different. With this is kind of unprecedented because the player was traded and given a full contract, fully guaranteed, in the midst of all of these things going on. Plus, his contract was set up as such to where he'd get paid like no money on the front end, to where if he were to get suspended, it'd be chump change compared to what he's going to get of the $230 million guaranteed. So those are all the facts that we know now, okay?
Yeah.
Tyler, I think that it will be 12 games. I don't think it's going to be a full season. I don't think it'll be beyond that. I think at this point, the NFL needs to look at this. Roger Goodell needs to look at this, be like, okay, the baseline is so much lower than what we thought it was going to be initially. Like if the initial was 12, I'm assuming they still would have appealed it and tried to get a year and a half. You know, this was the plan all along, and I'm going to let you get to that. But because the floor was so low at 6 games, you can't go to 18 games from 6, I don't think. It looks, even though it's completely irrational, it would be difficult to win that appeal in court. So I think it's going to be 12. They'll double it, but he'll play down the stretch and maybe make a playoff push late for the last 5 games of the year for the Browns.
I think it might even end up as 10. You know, the NFL is going to try to take what they can get without getting sued by Watson. If they can slide a couple more games on there and Watson just say, all right, whatever, you know, I want to get this done with. Don't want to go to court more. But for me, you know, we try to look at it from a deeper angle. I just think this was all a setup. Sue Robinson being asked as the judge, all that. This is what it is. Hey, Sue, you go out there and they know, they have lawyers. Oh, based on our current rules, a judge is going to read the current rules. A judge isn't going to rule based on morality and whether they think Deshaun Watson's a bad guy or not. They're going to go off the rules. That's what judges do. So based on the rules that the NFL has in place, they knew she could only give him 6 games. It's a first-time player conduct violation. She's going to give him 6 games. And then what the NFL can do is, so they don't lose the battle of public reception, they come back in and they say, nope, that's not good enough. We're appealing because we think he should have more. The NFL is the hero coming in to increase his suspension. Oh, it's not the NFL went light on this guy. Blah, 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 blah. And nobody's going to get mad at Sue Robinson. She's just a person involved in nobody's going to go on ESPN and say, oh, Sue Robinson's such a bad guy. The NFL, like they would if Goodell would have done that from the start, or Troy Vincent would have done that from the start. So they've completely, not only have they not made themselves a villain, the NFL has found a way to position themselves as the hero who rides in at the last second and says, bad guy, you're going to get in more trouble than that because the trouble that the person we picked that gave you that trouble isn't enough. The NFL set this all up perfectly so that in the eye of the public, they are not the bad guy. It's masterful. It's a tad bit shady, but that's what I think is obvious that happened here. They knew that as a judge, Robinson couldn't give him more than 6 games, and that would give them an opportunity to come back in later. It's like, you ever seen the movie Aquaman? Aquaman's brother. He coordinates an attack from the surface to spurn people into getting in a war. The NFL has just set a trap that they can save the damsel in distress from to make themselves look good. It's like a Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he goes and finds crimes right when they happen. He started committing the crimes himself or setting up the crimes so that he would be the first person there to report it. It's exactly like that. The NFL created a calamity that they couldn't be blamed for so that they could come in and seem like they're saving people from the calamity, because every other opportunity that they've had like this, they've looked bad in the public eye. This is masterful PR work by the NFL. Even if you consider it shady, it is quite the diabolical scheme.
If what you say is true.
Theory. It's just a theory.
Listen. I mean, I don't understand why you'd go outside if you could appeal it. Like it's
only to make yourself look good. It doesn't. If you're just going to overrule the lady in the first place, then why even have her? So you look better in the end.
Yeah. And, the thing that got me the most, and this is not, well, it's not directly correlated, but it's tangentially, was the news about the Miami Dolphins and Stephen Ross coming out not 24 hours after the Deshaun Watson suspension was levied. It's just like, oh, you know what people like? Tom Brady.
Yeah.
They like people getting suspended. They like all these things. Let's shift gears with the misdirection and just muddy the waters for everything that all the outrage from the day before.
Well, while we're here, we might as well
Well,
hit
we're
on
in this
that.
part of the pool.
Yeah, if we're gonna be in the deep end, then I'm doing cannonballs. It's so obvious what happened. To keep it a step further, they know that they're going to do that, and then to take away Deshaun Watson as the primary headline the next day to wash it away with the news cycle, you got the Stephen Ross thing. And here's what I'm going to say: it's obvious that the Stephen Ross news, they held it so they could release it the next day to wash the Watson stuff away. And not only that, but my big thing is this news about the tampering with the Dolphins makes me believe Brian Flores even more, because the NFL is trying to skate out saying, yeah, he said that it'd be better if you didn't lose. It'd be better to get draft positioning. I'll pay you $100 for every loss, but $100,000 for every loss. And they're saying, oh, he said that in jest. It was meant to be a joke. Even though at the time, in real time, Brian Flores reported it as not a joke. So how can it? Basically what happened here was the NFL came out and said, hey, everything that Brian Flores said was true, except for that one part that makes the NFL look really bad and would probably get us beat in court. That part, though, that one part over there about discrimination and racism and tanking and all those little things that would really make the NFL look bad. No, those parts aren't true, but all the things that just make Stephen Ross individually look bad, those are the parts that were true about what Brian Flores says. It's just absolute nonsense. At the end of the day, they put out that story on Wednesday to wash away the Watson stuff. And Brian Flores was telling the truth, and the NFL is using semantics to try to act like he isn't when we all know what the reality is here. So it's just crazy, the PR game that is constantly going on with this billion-dollar organization we call the NFL. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's because when it comes down to it, people are going to watch, people are going to listen, people are going to subscribe, people are going to love their teams, people are going to do whatever. Like it is that snowball that is perpetually rolling downhill. Like, do you remember years ago when people were saying, oh, the NFL is oversaturating by playing a Thursday night game? It's going to oversaturate the market. Now what that's been is a help in being the catalyst for a 24/7 NFL news cycle, 365 days a year. And this is just another storyline where a guy got fined $1.5 million. And if it comes out, I can't believe we didn't talk about this today, and we're running out of time. If it comes out that Stephen Ross was gambling on games or something, like, because you and I were going back and forth on Twitter about how Calvin Ridley got a full year and Deshaun Watson only got 6 games at the time, where it would completely change. Like if players started betting on games, and that's a terrible potential for things like. But if Stephen Ross was betting on games, and I don't know if this is true or not, I'm saying this is a complete projection. If he was, and he was asking Brian Flores to throw games, that's a jailable offense. Like, that's not fines. That's not selling the team. That is way worse than that. So, yeah, I don't know.
More still might come out, and there's so much meat on the bone if you want to keep chewing. But that's going to do it for us today. Football game tonight, baby. Football games are back, even if it may not be the best football game that we see all year. But either way, Chris Carter and your boy Q will be back to break it all down with you tomorrow. You know that your boy Q is going to have a lot to say, considering he covers the Raiders on a day-to-day basis. But hope you all stay safe out there. Enjoy the football. That's going to do it for us. We will see you next time.